This is the World Report, your compass to African news and the world beyond. I'm Fatia Mohammed Noor. In the headlines, the 5th Assembly of the East Africa Legislative Assembly has officially opened. State of emergency declared in Haiti. Egypt sentences top leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood to death. Super Tuesday begins in the United States. And Meta's Instagram, Facebook hit by widespread outages. Welcome to the program. Now, Kenya's President William Ruto has officially opened the special plenary sittings of the East Africa Legislative Assembly during the inaugural sitting of the 5th Assembly in Nairobi, Kenya.
It is important for institutions like the East Africa Legislative Assembly to apply your mind to what kind of contribution are you going to make in this reform that is going to make our economies access development finance.
The assembly, made up of 63 member states, will hold a 3-week sitting in Nairobi to consider various reports from different committees. The committee's sittings will take a look at 7 reports touching on oversight of different partner states in the transport and trade sector. The plenary will also consider 5 reports on different bills aimed at addressing member states. The sessions will be chaired by Joseph Ntakirutimana. The Yala membership has 54 elected members and 8 ex-official members. The ex-official members are the 6 ministers from each state responsible for regional cooperation. The other 2 officials are the Secretary General of the EAC and the Council to the Community, who are part of debates but do not participate in voting. The Yala sessions are held on rotational basis in the 5 EAC partner states. EAC is a regional intergovernmental organization formed by Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda and Burundi, and is headquartered in Arusha, Tanzania. The Haiti government has declared a 72-hour state of emergency in the capital, Port-au-Prince, after several days of violence broke out in the capital. At least 12 people have been reported dead, and it's also reported that over 3,700 inmates have escaped prison. According to Haitian media, it is reported that police stations were attacked, distracting authorities before the coordinated assault on the jails. Gangs control around 80% of the Haiti's capital, and now the gang leaders are demanding the resignation of Prime Minister Ariel Henry. 8 members of the Muslim Brotherhood have been sentenced to death following their role in the 2013 violence, which followed the military's ouster of the late Mohamed Morsi, who was the country's first democratically elected president. Those condemned to death by the Emergency Supreme Court of State Security sitting in Cairo included the Brotherhood's Supreme Guide, Mohamed Badie. Badie was the 8th Supreme Guide of the Muslim Brotherhood and led the group between 2010 and 2013 when he was arrested during the army coup against the Morsi government. The men were accused of conspiring to topple the government of Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, who himself came to power after overthrowing Mohamed Morsi. They were also accused of killing policemen and destroying public property. Super Tuesday is usually the biggest day in the U.S. election race. This is when most states vote in the presidential primary calendar. Voters in 15 states will vote for their presidential candidate. This offers a glimpse of Joe Biden and Donald Trump's strengths and potential weaknesses, as the 2 rivals are likely heading to a rematch in November's general election. Social media users of Facebook and Instagram experienced login issues in what appeared to be a widespread outage. The social media platforms were down for hundreds of thousands of users across the globe, but the sites appear to be returning to normal about 2 hours later. Meta spokesperson Andy Stone said in a post on X that a technical issue caused people to have difficulty accessing some of their services. He also said, and I quote, "We resolve the issue as quickly as possible for everyone who was impacted, and we apologize for any inconvenience." 500,000 reports of outages for Facebook and 70,000 reports for Instagram were reported by the outage tracking website downdetector.com. Facebook also suffered a similar outage in 2021 and was also attributed to technical issues. On the big story, we focus on Haiti. The Caribbean nation has been marred by political instability, economic challenges, and social unrest for years. But how did it get here? Let's start with the basics. The country is located on the island of Hispaniola in the Caribbean Sea, sharing an island with the Dominican Republic to the east. Its estimated population is 11.5 million people. The capital is Port-au-Prince. Haiti gained independence from France on January 1st, 1804, making it the first independent nation in Latin America and Caribbean.
Haiti is one of the unfortunate examples of a really failed state. And it's also unfortunate because it prides itself as having been the first Black republic, having gotten independence more than 200 years ago. However, it's been beset by crisis after crisis, bad governance, and today increasingly is one of the most unstable countries in the globe. And I think that is telling, considering how much effort has been made over the years to try and stabilize that country.
Unfortunately, Haiti is prone to natural disasters, including hurricanes, earthquakes, and tropical storms. In 2010, a devastating earthquake killed over 300,000 people. Politically, the country has been in turmoil. The state of emergency in Haiti is as a result of the gangs causing mayhem in the country.
Haiti is a country right now being pretty much ruled by gangs. And if there is any such a term as gangtocracy, then it's ruled by gangs. But it also speaks, I think, is a result of the perpetual weakness of the central and national government in Haiti. Now, to the extent that the gangs are running wild, of course, says that the security apparatus in Haiti, they are not sufficient to deal with the problem. And that is going to pose a challenge to any force, of course, that is going to have, a mission of trying to restore law and order.
The latest upscale in violence began when Prime Minister Ariel Henry visited Nairobi to discuss sending a Kenya-led multinational security force to Haiti. Gang leader Jimmy Sherizia, also known as Barbecue, then declared a coordinated attack to remove him from power. A state of political vacuum in Haiti has led to several demonstrations against the government, with protesters demanding the resignation of the Prime Minister. But then Kenya is deploying its officers as part of a multinational security force in Haiti.
I really applaud Kenya for taking an interest, for being ready to deploy there. And we had your national security advisor in Munich, and she was participating in our kind of roundtable discussion. And what is very clear is that Kenya brings a lot of credibility. When you look at past operations in Haiti, where the French intervened, the Americans intervened, the strictly UN forces intervened, they all failed. But Kenya brings a lot of credibility with it. And I think it's important that Kenya, and it's really, Kenya has to be commended for doing it. But they cannot do it alone.
The Kenyan mission of about 1,000 is supposed to be part of a multinational force. Now, what is going to be critical to the success of it is if other countries are going to pitch in, because the numbers that are being deployed, of course, right now, they're not sufficient enough to be able to police a country of about 12 million people. However, those attempts, of course, have to be made. But I think the success is going to be guaranteed, or at least to be ensured, if the multinational force is going to be expanded, but also the political process has to be undertaken, because the current flare-up of violence is in part sparked by the grievances and the complaints by not just the gangs, but other Haitians on the streets, that this government, the current government, is legitimate. It has outlived, of course, its term, constitutional term limit, and the parliament, should have, changed a long time ago. And so you have a crisis of legitimacy that's also compounding, the entire problem.
I cannot, from where I sit, say if 1,000 police will be sufficient to resolve the problem, which has even gotten worse, even since the 2 weeks that the Munich Security Conference took place. So what we need is a strong force that then guarantees a certain degree of security. This is the basis then for a political process where you need stabilization, you need elections, you need the Haitians to take things in their hand. I think one mistake cannot be done as done before, that we resolve the problems for the Haitian. They have to assume responsibility, but for this to happen, there has to be security, and this is the number one issue. We will then need, as I said, the political process. We need to see that there is humanitarian and development aid, and we need the diaspora to engage. There are a number of factors that have to come together. And I hope that in preparing now the intervention, this is not done piecemeal, but that it's done together. You need financial support. I mean, for Kenya to deploy its forces, need financial support. But overall, to resolve the problem there, you will need a lot of money. And I just hope that all these different pieces come together, so that there is a better future for the people in Haiti who have suffered for many decades and basically live in a failed state today.
First of all, there is no law and order to maintain in Haiti. Neither is there peace to keep. There is need to enforce law, and there is need to enforce peace. So that's a very different mission. If we approach it as a peacekeeping or just simply law and order maintenance, then we may, of course, be losing the point, because what is going to be important is to deal with the criminals, or the criminal gangs who are organized, they're armed, and they have roots beyond Haiti, all across Hispaniola, and even with links to some other criminal gangs in Latin America. And so this is not exactly a group that we're going to wish away or perhaps deal with it, for instance, from a peacekeeping perspective. There's going to be a significant degree of peace enforcement, as well as enforcement of law and order. So I think the way we define our engagement is going to be critical, so that the forces that are going to be on the ground, they are capacitated sufficiently, but also appropriately, to be able to deal with the reality that exists, but not to deal with things that we hope perhaps we're going to find.
Along with the Kenyan officers, the Bahamas has also committed to 150 officers. Jamaica and the state of Antigua and Barbuda have said they are willing to help, while the U.S. has pledged $200 million to support the deployment.
This is a problem that is worldwide. You have so many small arms and weapons now distributed to people, to gangs, to clans, organized crime, to a degree that is really scary. There have been initiatives to disarmament and to see to it that small arms are collected, but we see that in this race right now, organized crime and others are winning, and this is a nightmare.
Peace diplomacy is a central plank of Kenya's foreign policy. So it's a key pillar of Kenya's foreign policy, and it's not going to be the first time Kenya is engaged in a peacekeeping kind of mission. Of course, some people would argue that what has happened previously has not been the police type of work, but it has mostly been kind of military peacekeeping missions, and they're still ongoing up to now. Now, what does Kenya stand to get? One, Kenya prides itself as being a Pan-Africanist country. And the new administration, I think, has been very clear with regard to championing that Pan-African agenda. And Pan-Africanism, of course, extends beyond the borders of Africa to include people of African gene pool outside the continent. But there are also other factors that speak, I think, to what we call the intangible benefits that perhaps the country, their calculation may be able to get. And that is elevating Kenya's own image on the international stage as not only a contributor to peacekeeping, but as a leader in peacekeeping in a rather very dangerous and risky environment. Of course, our opinions are going to differ with regard to the wisdom of undertaking such a mission, especially at this time, in a country that has resisted attempts to pacify and stabilize it. But certainly, there are no major economic goods, for instance, for Kenya. And I think the degree to which the international community is going to support Kenyan mission is going to determine a lot whether that mission is going to be successful, and even for how long I think Kenya may be willing to stay there.
We need to see to it that the global umbrella stands and is supported. So you need the UN, but you need to take a regional look. So we in the European Union have been very fortunate after the Second World War that with the European Union, we have a situation now where between the member states of the Union, when there is a conflict, you no longer go on the battlefield, but you go to the European Court of Justice in Luxembourg. And this is something that I think in all continents is important.
On Election Pulse this week, we focus on the United States. Elections in the United States are pretty complex. So let's take a look at the basics and where we are at the moment. The United States is a federal republic where power is divided between a central federal government and individual state governments. This division of power extends to the electoral process. The U.S. holds the various types of elections, including presidential elections, congressional elections, state and local elections, state legislatures and municipal offices, as well as special elections to fill vacant seats. The President of the United States is elected through the Electoral College system rather than a direct popular vote. Each state is allocated a certain number of electoral votes based on its representation in Congress. The candidate who wins the popular vote in a state generally receives all of its electoral votes. To win the presidency, a candidate must secure a majority of the electoral votes, at least 270 out of 538. The U.S. political system is dominated by just two parties, so every president belongs to one of them. The Democrats are the liberal political party with an agenda defined largely by its push for civil rights, a broad social safety net, and measures to address climate change. The Republicans are the conservative political party in the U.S. Also known as the GOP, or the Grand Old Party. It has stood for lower taxes, shrinking the size of the government, gun rights, and tighter restrictions on immigration and abortion. On the entertainment scene, another tragic death. Veteran Nigerian actor John Okafor, also known as Mr. Ibu, has died. The veteran comedian passed away at Evercare Hospital in Nigeria on Saturday. He is said to have died while in a coma. On party clips this week, we take a look at Saudi Arabia marking 100 million tourists in the country, as celebrated by the World Tourism Organization.
Well, it's a very big milestone because, you know, that goal was set for 2030. So to accomplish 100 million visits by 2024 shows the interest that people have about the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So it's a giant historic milestone for us. So what we're finding out, and I have the privilege also of sitting on the Saudi Tourism Authority, what we're finding out is that people had no idea that you had the largest sand desert in the world, and no idea that it snowed up north in Neom, or that there's lush green valleys and 7 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. So now the images are going out around all the world, and people want to come and see the birthplace of Arabia. They want to come and see the birthplace of the kingdom. They want to come and enjoy the beautiful Red Sea. So there's so much to do here. We're pleasantly surprised, and we think we'll only go from strength to strength.
On that note, we wrap up the World Report this week. Remember, if you have any comments or questions, you can reach me on social media at Noor Fatia.